with all your experience on policy making and national security, how do you see the dependence on foreign sources of minerals and metals? Is that a problem, or is something that is just part of the globalization and we need to get used to it and manage the best way that we can?
You said something earlier that I wanted to just take exception to. The problem is we're not dealing with people simply using these minerals as political weapons or as diplomatic leverage. I think they're at the very least putting themselves in positions to use them as strategic weapons. We cannot persist in a policy approach that we have to date, either as a national security sort of element of the government, or I think the government more generally, in which it seems to me we're playing by kind of a different set of rules than the rest of the world. You've mentioned the term globalization. That's kind of our mantra, and GE is a prime example of the phenomenon. And yet, I think, objectively, you see virtually every other country on the planet, or in some cases, groupings of countries like the EU, pursuing what is at the very least mercantilistic policies, maybe nationalistic. Certainly, in some cases, and the Chinese come to mind, more colonialist than anything else. And they're not approaching this in a way that is conducive to our, I think, continuing to have the kind of confidence that we have as a country and as a Defense Department, most especially, that we'll always have access to whatever it is we need from wherever it is we get it at the lowest price. And that therefore we can safely depend upon those foreign sources of supplies, especially for products, as Colin was saying, that are vital to national security, as well as other parts of our economy in the energy sector and health and so many others. I happen to think that the United States government has for years, and this isn't a partisan critique, it's been true under both Republican and Democratic administrations, been derelict to the point of malfeasance when it comes to thinking that this can be sort of an open-ended reliance upon even countries that are demonstrably unfriendly to us and becoming more so by the day. And we're getting to a point now where, whether it's in the case of rare earth minerals or frankly in several others, energy, financing, access to space, I mean, these are just examples of an attitude that I think is irresponsible and going to cost us in strategic terms, not just in sort of political and diplomatic ones. So I guess I would conclude by saying it seems to me that at this point in time, it's imperative that the kind of interest that Colin is describing is taking place on the Hill go forward, yes, but be matched by a level of interest and commitment in the executive branch as well. If I could close with just one example of something that happened a couple of years ago. I'm sure those of you in the business know this better than I, but I remember testifying against the purchase by China of Unocal. And I think I was the only one to mention that there was this natty problem that Unocal would not only be turning over some significant, not huge, but significant energy resources to the Chinese, but they would also be giving them title to the Mountain Pass mine, which at that moment was basically the only working mine, and it wasn't all that working as I recall, but it was accessible. And had we done that, whatever it is, the 97% of the world's rare earth minerals that are now supplied, if they are, by the Chinese, would have been an even larger percentage of the world's actual capacity. So nobody was paying attention to that. Not in the Defense Department, as best I could tell, not in the White House, not on Capitol Hill, until these sort of larger issues of energy security sort of came to the fore. But it's simply a reminder. This isn't a problem, as Colin said, that has started yesterday. It has been with us for some time. I think we have compounded it by our indifference to the dangers, the vulnerabilities associated with dependence on especially unreliable, even hostile nations. And it's something we've got to remedy. And we'll presumably spend some time here talking about how best to do that. But I think there is an absolutely pressing national security argument, as well as for the larger economy, that we do that.